Now, Max, we made this plan for this this next segment here weeks ago. We thought it'd be really fun during the month of December to go around Canada and talk to some great analysts from the connections that we've made on the Rod Pedersen Show, of course, and bring in two teams to a show and break down the off seasons, what's going into next season, what are the teams looking like, and the first name we brought up was this next guest.
It was the very first name.
First name we thought of was we got to get this guy in. So we're kicking off our Canada-wide NHL Team Preview Tour for the month of December. We hope the NHL is kicking off in January.
Yeah, hopefully get a start date soon.
I mean, we'll see. But we're starting over in Cowtown with the new look Calgary Flames, yet old Blasty jerseys.
I love Blasty.
They're making a comeback. But who better to break it all down than the leader of the pack when it comes to good people, Peter Loubardias. Bring in Peter. There he is. Peter, how you doing tonight?
Hi, guys. You have great show, outstanding sponsorship. You guys have built quite a program over there. Maybe tonight a little vim with the vigor on the segues.
That's fantastic. We got to clean it up a little bit. I think is what he's trying to say. Yeah. Got to get that vim. Yeah. Peter, before we get into the Flames talk, we talked about this, me and Max, before the show. We had a great memory, and I was taken down a rabbit hole of YouTube videos a little while back, a couple weeks ago now. And when I say the words to you, Peter, can you believe what we just saw? Yeah. And when I say the name Patrick Stefan, what comes to mind to you?
Well, needless to say, probably the most memorable call I've ever been involved in my career. It doesn't seem to go any more, guys, than 1 or 2 weeks without it popping up or somebody asking, or like you, it shows up on a video or Twitter. I haven't been asked this for a little while, but somebody asked me about it the other day, and we kind of went through it a little bit. And I said, there's so many things about that play that still, every time I go back and watch it, and yes, I will admit to you, I've watched it 1 or 2 or 200 times, is obviously the focus is on the miss, right? More than anything. But what is so astounding is when you think about within about 8 seconds, Stefan falls. If he even pulls the puck 2 inches back in a different direction, it's underneath him. But instead, he pulls it right to Jarrett Stoll, who whips a 140-foot pass cross ice to the blue line. Then the touch pass across to Hemsky. Hemsky goes in, dekes Marty Turco, beats him, 2 seconds left to tie the game. It still gives me goosebumps every time I go back and watch it. And more than anything, I still truly can't believe that all happened in one sequence and what it took for it to all come together. And the other thing that always strikes me, guys, and I don't know if it has struck you this way, that place went off like the Oilers. And remember, they just tied a regular season game. But that place went off like, they just won a Stanley Cup final game. So that resonates with me, too, every time I go back and watch it. I hope I didn't mess it up. I'm always delighted that I was fortunate enough to have a chance to be any kind of a part of it.
So 2 things with that, Peter. Me and Max were saying, was this in the playoffs that this happened? Because this crowd was nuts. And second thing, Ray Ferraro does lights into. I think Ray Ferraro ended Patrick Stefan's career.
He carved him like a Thanksgiving turkey. It was just.
Have you ever talked to Ray about his reaction to that?
There's a little side story there, and at some point you guys can have Ray on and you can ask him, because I don't like to talk for other people. I'm good enough at talking myself. But let's just put it this way. Ray and Patrick spent some time together when they were members of the Atlanta Thrashers.
Oh.
Don't think he and Patrick ever hit it off. Let's put it that way during their time together.
Well,
that makes sense.
Bucket list. I got to get Ray Ferraro on the show.
It's got to happen.
Just for that. We're only going to ask him that one question,
That's
and
it.
he can. That's all we need him for.
I'm sure you'd be able to add that one.
Yeah. Peter, we're going to get into the Flames here now, of course. That's why we brought you on. We want to get into the offseason and how the team's looking. Kayla, if you can put up that Flames preview board here quick, we'll just kind of get a quick snapshot of what we're looking at. I'll just let them get that up there. There it is. Of course, the big addition was Jacob Markstrom. The team last year was 37-27-7 for 79 points, finishing just ahead of the Vancouver Canucks, who we're talking with Andrew Walker shortly about them. They finished just 1 point back. They have a little bit of cap space, not a ton, but maybe a little bit of wiggle room. Obviously, they added Markstrom, Tanev, Levo, Simon, Nesterov, and Petrovic, but they lost, as of right now, this could change, Travis Hamonic, Cam Talbot, TJ Brody, Zarnik, Gustafsson, Reeder, Stone, Jankowski. I mean, that's a lot of names, Peter, but then you look at who they added in the draft, Connor Zary. I'm sure you have a few thoughts on that little man. He's not a little man. I say that in jest. But we can bring Peter back in here, guys. When you look at that board, Peter, just some of those names I rattled off, additions, subtractions, maybe a re-signed guy. Who do you think, what makes the biggest impact to you out of that list?
Well, it's hard not to start with Jacob Markstrom. I mean, he's coming off a phenomenal season. The one-time second-round pick of the Florida Panthers has really come into his own at 30 years old, about to turn 31 in his National Hockey League career. And like so many goalies, guys, it took some time. I remember watching him, a matter of fact, for the first time going all the way back to the 2009 World Junior Championship in Ottawa. That was the first time I had an opportunity to watch him in person, and you could tell, that he had great size and athleticism. It took him a while to truly find his way in the National Hockey League, but he's ultra competitive. And, I think a couple things when I assess this acquisition. First of all, even though, and you guys might disagree, and some people do, the Flames have really not found a replacement for Mika Kiprasov. And in Calgary, trust me when I tell you, goaltending seems to be the big story almost regardless. And even in the last two playoffs, I thought Cam Talbot, outside of, the tough game against Dallas, was arguably as good as any player in these summer playoffs. And Mike Smith, the year before, even in that 5-game loss in the first round of Colorado, they've managed to mix and match with their goaltending. And I don't think that's been a huge problem. But for Brad Treliving, the GM of this team, to solidify, get, the number one prize that was available in the goaltending market, that's Markstrom. And on top of that, what isn't talked about, I don't think enough, guys, is this. You also take him away from one of your division rivals in Vancouver and kept him away from a team up the highway in Edmonton that very much was interested in his services. So it's hard for me not to start there. Right after that, even though, I've been a big TJ Brody fan for a long time, sad to see him go. But I think Chris Tanev has been one of the most underrated defenders in the game for quite some time. In fact, if you think about a guy like Marc-Edouard Vlasic of the San Jose Sharks at his best, I've always felt that Chris was kind of, very much in that category. He's never going to get you a ton of points. Look what he did, gents. The pairing with Quinn Hughes. Listen, Quinn Hughes is a great, great young defenseman. But don't kid yourself. I'm not sure he has that kind of year without the tutelage and the type of partner and type of person that Chris Tanev has. So in getting Tanev, you really feel like for the Flames, you've solidified your top four. You talked about Nesterov, who, couldn't necessarily find his way in the early stages of the National Hockey League, went back to Russia, was highly touted, played in a couple of World Juniors back in the day, like that fit. They've added a lot more depth with Levo and Dominic Simone and Joachim Nordstrom. I think certainly on paper, they're a better team. And I think up front, they have more good options than they have in any point in time that I've been around the team for basically over a decade now.
Absolutely, Lou. And you know what? It's kind of funny. I can assume there's no man happier than Brad Treliving to finally land that number one goaltender. In his tenure in Calgary, it seems like, again, as you alluded to earlier, it's been tough sledding on the goaltending front. Do you think with the addition of Markstrom, we've maybe said goodbye to a prominent role for David Rittich? Or with it looking potentially like it might be a bit of a sprint to the playoffs this year, there's going to be maybe a little bit more of a split in the workload than we think there's going to be, I guess, with the Markstrom signing?
And I think it's a great point you make. This season, no matter whether it's 48 to 60 or somewhere in between, I think guys, hopefully they get to one. I could use a paycheck one of these days. And everybody wants them to get back and get playing, maybe no more so than myself. But it's going to be a compacted schedule. You're going to need both guys. David's going into the last year of his contract. Despite how things went or maybe didn't go his way, to have more of a prominent role in the playoffs. All he's done every single year since he came over from the Czech Republic is take another step. He slid back a little in the second half of the year, but it's a great 1-2 punch as of right now. Don't forget, they've also grabbed Louis Domingue for some more insurance, which gives you potential options. So now you have three guys who can play in the league. But, whether it's this compacted season, I don't know about you gentlemen, but you need two goalies today in the NHL. You really do. Between the travel, the importance of the games, by and large, and all you have to do is go back and look at the last 2 years. To me, a number one goalie plays 55 to 60. We're not seeing any more of the 65 to 70. So you need two guys, and not only who can play, but who can win you games. So Calgary, between the 4x6, I think has been in the best shape they've been in a long, long time, albeit that, for me, at crunch time the last 2 years in the playoffs hasn't been in any way, shape, or form what's held them back.
Yeah, that's a super interesting topic there. We could probably talk for hours on the goaltending in Calgary and everything. I want to go to the blue line a little bit deeper with you, Lou, and Kayla.
Every day at 12 noon, so I'm good.
Yeah, I can imagine. Kayla, if you can put up the defense and goalie picture that I had for you there. Now, we just talked about the goalies, but in terms of the defense, Lou, they went through quite a transformation going into this next season. I think the graphic's coming up here in a sec. There it is. So they still have Mark Giordano. Obviously, you can't deny his ability and his leadership on that team. Chris Tanev slots in there somewhere in the top four. Then you have Noah Hannafin, and Rasmus Andersson's probably due for a big step in his career. And Juuso Välimäki is coming up. He's touted to be pretty good. And then Oliver Shillington, they just re-signed him. So you can bring Lou back up here, guys. What do you think about that blue line now, even though they lost Brody, Hamonic, Stone, Gustafsson? That's over half of their blue line. What do you think about the blue line?
Yeah, don't forget about Derek Forbort either, who was a really nice ad coming over from LA at the deadline. He probably didn't get the type of credit he deserved. Good size, was an excellent penalty killer, and with Travis opting out as far as the NHL playoffs were concerned, he really filled in admirably. And obviously the Winnipeg Jets thought so too, because they signed him. A couple things here, guys. Rasmus Andersson, without a doubt for me, is really on the verge, I truly believe, of, an excellent top pairing defenseman. He's ultra competitive. He's taken massive strides. I've already talked on the show about how I feel about Tanev. Outstanding defensive defender. Definitely solidifies your top four, whether he plays with Noah Hannafin, whether, they have a pairing with Mark Giordano. The key guy was on the bottom left corner of that graphic, and that's Juuso Välimäki. Välimäki, most people know, has not played a lot of hockey. He's absolutely, it's just made me sad, plagued by the kind of injuries for 3 years, missed all of last season. But I think his upside is off the charts. He's back playing at home, which is awesome, in Ilves, in the Finnish Liga, where he's putting up a point a game and playing 20-plus minutes every single game. He's having fun. He's got great confidence. And I think going forward, he could be, well, he's going to be, mark my words, an all-day, all-year top 4 guy for a long time, not necessarily to start this year, but that's where his career is going to go. And he could end up down the road, I think, being an unbelievable fit on your top pairing. So I think he's really key. It may take him some time this year just because he hasn't played very much. And then with, whether it's Shillington, Nestorov, former Red Deer Rebel, and Alex Petrovic, who gives you some size and strength and a stay-at-home, steady Eddie kind of guy to play a number 6 or a number 7 role. I don't mind this group one iota, and I think they're getting better. And when you have core pieces who are, 23 and 24 and 23 years old, and Valimaki, Anderson, and Hanifin, remember Hanifin has almost played 400 NHL regular season games. He's only 23. So, that they have lost a lot. Some of those guys, Brody and Hamonic, are going to be hard to replace. But I think there's a lot of great things coming for that group too.
Yeah, it's not often you can go out and lose. You mentioned 5 of your defensemen and still have a core as good as that one. Mm-hmm. It's not often. No. Max, you were going to go into the forwards a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, Lou, from the 4x6 to the top 6D to the top 6 forwards in Calgary, it's not really a secret that Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan had statistically down seasons last season. Is it a bounce back season? Is that absolutely critical to the Flames getting back to the playoffs?
Well, I think Clark's heard this, Max, and you may have too along the way on some of my appearances on Rod's show, certainly on my own show in Calgary. A reconstruction of this forward group, I think, for me personally, outside of, maybe solidifying the goaltending spot, was number 1, because we're at a certain point with this team where key guys and key core guys, Gaudreau and Monahan, and I see both of them a little bit different. Even though Sean's numbers were down, I think Sean's 200-foot game really improved this season. And sometimes when that pendulum in life swings one way, it can be hard for it to catch up, if you know what I mean. So I saw a lot more grit, physicality, won more face-offs, maybe didn't produce as much, but, I still saw great steps. With Johnny Gaudreau, I think he's at a let's go or, maybe let's go, if you know what I'm saying. He did not have a good year. The playoffs, outside of some work on the power play, didn't go well. And the Flames, certainly since an incredible 3-month stretch, not this season, but the season before, where Gaudreau, Monahan, and Lindholm were one of the best lines in all of hockey. Well, since that 3-month stretch, which really came to an end with the mandated CBA break in the All-Star game of the 2018-2019 season, they as a trio they have never been able to kind of get back there, and everybody's hoping that they might get back there. Now, with all those additions that we've already put up on the board, I think they have more options and more flexibility and opportunities to potentially move Elias Lindholm to the middle. I think that potentially is where Geoff Ward is going to go. Dylan Dubé, former Kelowna Rocket, 2-time member of the World Junior Team. I think the world of this guy. All he's ever shown me, going back to his days in Kelowna, when games are big, this guy knows how to get it done. I think he's on the precipice. Andrew Mangiapane, all he does is continue to get better. So Sam Bennett, if Sam Bennett can ever find playoff Sam Bennett in the regular season, now you've got something. Lucic is, forget about the numbers with this guy. What he did this year, this past season, leadership, mentoring, making people better, being kind of an extension of the head coach, I can't say enough good things about him. So you add the new pieces, some reconstruction. They've got way more options, and I can't wait to get back, to watch them again, because it feels like forever. But I'm fascinated to see what Geoff Ward and that coaching staff is thinking in terms of how they're going to at least start with all the puzzle pieces up front.
Now, how's this? Lou talked about cleaning up the segues. How's this for a segue? You mentioned Geoff Ward. We were going to bring him up. So what do you think about Geoff Ward as the coach of this team going forward? Obviously, he had the time as the interim coach. They put the head coach title on top of there. Was he the right move, do you think, for this team?
There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. None. Really, really tough situation. Geoff has been around hockey for really a lifetime. I think he's 57 now. He waited forever. Great part of so many coaching staffs. Head coach in the American League at one point. The job he did with Claude Julien for all those years in Boston, including being part of the Stanley Cup winning staff in 2011 and, a staff that almost won another cup in 2015. To be frank, when I think about a coach and what you need from a coach in 2020, I think this guy has it all. He's a communicator. He's fair. He's honest. He empowers people. He invests in people. He's approachable. I asked him probably about a month, gents, after he took over, and I said, Are you disappointed that it took this long for you to get your chance? And he said no. He said all the experience going over to Europe, spending time over there in Germany. I think he's truly ready. He's incredibly smart. He's a teacher originally by trade. I just think the world of the guy. In fact, I've been covering hockey since 1985. And, he has quickly ascended for me into a very, very high echelon of just people to learn from, and not just about hockey, but about life. And I have great value in people that invest in others, that care, that empower people. And I do. I don't think it's hard to tell. I'm a pretty big fan. And listen, I was a big fan of the previous individual, despite how things came to an end there. He was a heck of a coach, no question. And I've dealt with many. But to come in and what Geoff and that staff and Brad Treleving did in those kind of waters and the adversity, that, boys and girls, to me is what leadership is all about. And I'm excited for Geoff. Whether it's Geoff, the coaching staff with Ryan Huska, Ray Edwards, Jordan Sigalet, Jamie Pringle, one of the finest people you'll ever meet in hockey, and Marty Jelena. It's a great group. It's a group that you can't help but cheer for and want the best for. And I'm really excited, that Geoff has had more than his fair share of time to get ready for whatever his first full season as a head coach is going to look like.
Full season.
Exactly. So we've talked about the goaltending. We've talked about defensemen. We've talked about the forwards. We've talked about kind of all of those things, really. Now let's maybe talk about the future just for a second there, Lou. Who in your eyes, outside of Connor Zary, we talked about him a little bit, who would you say maybe is Calgary's most highly touted prospect, and who's maybe a surprise name that not too many fans maybe know about that could emerge as one that maybe, escalates the prospect list in the coming years?
You know what? It's a great question. There's a couple ways to answer it. Certainly, even in the two games that I watched him play in, Connor Zary, good Saskatoon guy. I don't mind those Saskatoon guys, if you know what I mean. He might be one of those good Saskatoon guys myself. Well, it's a good place, and so is the place you're in too. Quite fond of the whole province myself. He really has come a long, long way. I think he's got an excellent chance to make Canada's World Junior team. The future is really, really bright for him. I talked already about Dylan Dubé. I think just scratching the surface. Can't wait to see Juuso Välimäki really get a full-time opportunity. So, those, frankly, are the guys that I'm absolutely the most excited about. to this point in time. Now, there's certainly, that's the thing about the Flames too. In the last 4 or 5 years, with Brad at the helm, they have done a terrific job of restocking the coffers. In fact, they have a number of guys that, have already made the team, being like 4th to 7th round picks and have found their way into the league and found their way into some pretty prominent roles. So their drafting has been really, really good. They're stocking the cupboards. They've made some moves, even when you think about Connor Mackey and Colton Poolman, who are 2 college free agent signees, to help them reestablish some depth on the back end. Probably still looking for more as far as forward depth is concerned. But they certainly made some moves in the most recent draft to, starting with Zuri to help that cause. So I do. I like the future of this group. I absolutely do. But guess what? If we're heading into an all-Canadian division scenario, which frankly I can't wait for, I'd look at it permanently. To be honest, if I had my way, they probably won't because of geography. But there's also a lot of other Canadian teams that I think are on the precipice of getting better and being in a better position. So, it's an exciting time, I think, guys, for almost anybody who's a fan of a Canadian team right now.
So my segue game just took off. Like I got 2 more questions for you, Lou, and then we're going to let you go. First segue. You mentioned Marty Gelinas earlier.
Runs, my friend.
Yeah, here we go. You mentioned Marty Gelinas earlier, and when I think Marty Gelinas, I think of the Blasty jerseys.
Yeah.
They're bringing them back, Lou. What do those jerseys mean to you?
I have to think about how I'm going to answer this. I think I already just answered it, if you know what I mean. Listen, I'll be as honest as I possibly can. I like them. I think Brent Gibbs, who does masterful work on the design of so many of the club's, jerseys and shirts and hats, I think they've done an unbelievable job with that jersey. I'm probably even a little more excited about how they've gone full time to the retros, both the reds and the whites, which, by the way, the white ones we saw on display at the Heritage Classic last year in Regina, and I fell in love with them all over again. So I'd love to tell you that Blasty is a blast off for me, but I generally don't pull too many punches. I like it. I think it's a great marketing tool. I think they've done an awesome job with it. And maybe the fact that, I got to Calgary in 2008, so Blasty really wasn't a prominent part of my time there. So I probably don't have the sentimental value that a lot of other Calgary Flames fans or people involved with the team do. I will say this, it looks nice. They did a really, really nice job with it.
Yeah, and they definitely have it right, like you said, with going full time with those retros and then mixing in the Blasty. I think that's a good trio of jerseys.
I think so too.
Yeah. Last one, and it was another segue for you, Peter. Oh, sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah. I just said it's a good mix.
Yeah. Last one, and you mentioned it a little bit. You kind of teased it in your answer to the couple questions ago, but the All-Canada Division. So we're asking this for everyone on our Canada-wide tour here. If it happens, when it happens, where are the Flames finishing in the All-Canadian Division?
Oh, I don't like the prediction game. I'm not a fan of the prediction game.
I know you don't, and that's why I'm asking you.
Game. The only place the prediction game gets you is in a bad place with something to flush. That's usually where the prediction game takes you. Yeah. I'll just leave you with this. I've seen a lot of different prognostications about the Canadian division. I've seen the Flames anywhere from 1 to 6. And I truly believe if I had any money to bet, and I don't, I think they could be anywhere from 1 through 4.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I like that. Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, that's the best I'm going to give.
I love it.
Perfect. Nailed it. Just a couple quick ones from our viewers here. Adam Schultz has been everything you've said. He's just like, yes, loving what I'm hearing. This is great. Love it. So shout out to Adam Schultz, who's having a great time tonight. He's loving the analysis. And we have a couple other ones. Robin Wildy saying that they have signed 21 out of 23 players, according to Cap Friendly, with just $1.01 million left. But that can change at any given time. And you never know with contracts.
With the taxi squad implications looking like they're possibly going to play a role there for sure.
Right. And you know what I've said a lot of times, Peter, is there's people that get paid a lot more money than me to figure out the cap. I'm just here to watch the games and have some fun. What do you think about that?
You know what, Clark, honestly, I've done this for a long time, and one thing's never changed. My favorite thing is not the business, it's the games. It always has been. It's the reason I got into the business. It's why I wanted to be in the business from the time I was 7. And at 55, it's still what I love the most. When the ball gets hit, thrown, when it gets shot in a basket, and first and foremost, when it gets dropped anywhere on the ice, sign me up. And oh my goodness, it's been far too long since I have been at a live sporting event.
What are those? What are live sporting events?
It's been a while for us.
It's coming.
It's
coming.
Well, Peter, we're going to let you get back to your night here. Thank you so much. Again, you were the first person we thought of when we wanted to do this, so thanks for joining us for tonight, and have yourself a great one.
Thanks a ton, Lou.
Have yourself a great one.
Guys, anytime, and just remember how grateful we're going to be and how awesome it's going to be when we get it back. Sometimes in life, we take the things we love the most for granted. But if COVID has taught us anything, it's about truly reflecting and understanding what really means a lot to us. And for a lot of us, sports is a pretty awesome thing to be able to watch and to be able to attend. Thanks for having me. Have a great rest of the show and a great time with this Across Canada Preview.
All right, thanks. Lou. That video chat, of course, was brought to you by IKS Media, our graphics and design team here at IKS. Thank you, guys. And, of course, they are your premier destination for event planning, live broadcasts, video screens, and entertainment. When we ever get the live events, they are great at it.
They're coming.
They're very good at it.
Absolutely.
I can attest. I've worked a few events. They're fantastic. IKSmedia.ca today for more information to find out how they can make your event the hottest ticket in town. Always the best seat in the house with IKS Media.